Weil so eine Christmas horror stories. And today we are going to let us three astronauts creepiest horror animated stories of all time. Excellent here, don't forget to subscribe and let's get school English Christmas Day. Let's start it. A Christmas Eve horror story. You know what? Any other life. It is a horror story. You can't really count this. Has this hack a life? Come on. Just got it. So, let's start it.
Last year on Christmas Eve, I was working late. I'm 23. I work in New York City and commute home every day on the train. Since I'm one of the younger ones in the office, I got stuck with one of the worst shifts, so I wasn't able to get home until 5 o'clock. My family had already left a whole hour earlier to go to my cousin's house, so I had to drive alone. After having a quick snack before the half-hour drive, I got back in my car and put my cousin's address into my phone. Halfway through the drive, it started snowing. I got to my cousin's house around 6 o'clock. It was snowing heavily by this point, and I just made it in time to catch everyone starting dinner. I brought all of my gifts inside and cheerfully said hey to everyone. I stayed until around 11 o'clock. The rest of my family left a little sooner. I stayed an extra half hour or so just to hang out before leaving myself. By the time I was leaving, the ground had accumulated at least 2 feet of snow, and it wasn't even done snowing. The drive...
I wish it would snow here where I live. And unless it's so nice, even if it's cold,
home was nightmarish. The roads were hardly even plowed, and I had to drive under 20 miles per hour on most roads. The roads were completely dead at this point, though, most likely because everyone was smart enough to go home before the snow accumulated. Eventually, I turned onto a main road that I'm sure would usually be bustling, but at 11:15 on Christmas Eve night, there wasn't a single car or a single light from the store. It was a ghost town. But then I did notice the flashing taillights of one car.
No, just drive, no. We're not going to have an even if Christmas is, I don't trust you, I don't know you.
It was parked on the side of the road, and the smoke seeping out from its exhaust with the taillights giving it a red tint. As I got closer, I realized there was somebody next to the car waving their hand in the air. I assumed something was wrong and they needed help. So, me being the good Samaritan I am, I pulled up behind the car.
That's why you will die. Because you are good Samaritan or what you said.
When I opened my door, the guy approached me immediately, barely even giving me time to step out. He was an average-sized man, probably 5'10".
Santa? That's a Santa?
He spoke in a very demanding voice, asking me if I know anything about fixing an engine. I told him I didn't know much about cars. The guy responded,
if you can't really help that nonetheless, then it's not really a reason for you to stay there,
so... to everything I said. He told me it's fine. He went inside of his car for a second, popped open his trunk, came back out, and told me to just wait by the trunk for a second.
Why, please, dude, and don't, please don't.
I had no idea what he wanted me to do. I was really confused. He walked over to the front of his car, and I heard him open the hood. I couldn't see anything he was doing since the trunk was blocking my view, and the loud wind of the snowstorm overpowered any small noises he might have been making. I put my hands on the back of the car and leaned my body in anticipation.
Not a thing to knock on somebody. That's the worst thing you can do.
3 or 4 quick and aggressive footsteps in the snow behind me before I was pushed into the trunk. The man tried to close the trunk on me, but I kicked my feet up in resistance and held it up.
Bam!
I was able to overpower him and kick the trunk open completely. As I took advantage of the few seconds I had to get out of the trunk, I took out my keys. He tried to grab me now, and I dug my house key right into his neck. He fell to his knees, and his scream echoed down the deserted street. I was in my car and halfway down the road before he could even get up from his knees. little further down, I called 911 and reported the guy. I came back in 10 minutes to find blue and red lights illuminating the windows of the deserted stores. The police held him until the ambulance arrived for him. I watched the whole thing, and nothing ever felt better in my life.
What?
I got home safely after and told my family everything. I was still very shaken that Christmas, and this remains possibly the most horrific thing I've ever experienced.
Damn, yeah. This could actually be a real story, because that is not that crazy. Yeah. That story. This one is called Christmas 1996. Scary Story Animated. 1996. Christmas 1996. This guy, okay, I'm going to try.
I was up early.
Ooh, that's a nice story, and it's a really interesting animation style.
Bounced out of bed and made my way down the hall towards our living room at the front of the
Ooh, I got goosebumps. Some stories, I like the stories.
house. I slowly peered in to see if Santa had bothered to pay us a visit. With all that had been going on over the past few weeks, I was certain that he wouldn't. However, a euphoric sense of excitement and happiness washed over me as I took in the gorgeous
That's a nice Christmas tree.
And all of its glistening bounty below. I called out to my mother, "He came! He came!"
He came! It's a horrible. I think I'm going to delete that one.
"Can we open them? Mum, wake up!" A murmur, followed by the crash of a lamp falling off a bedside table, was shortly followed by the shuffling of slippered feet along our old hardwood floor. Hunched over, she entered the living room along with the stench of whiskey and cigarettes from the night before.
No. She's an alcoholic. Oh, Kat. Your mom is a raging alcoholic.
My dad had up and left her for another woman not long ago, and for her to be up this early was nothing short of a Christmas miracle. She had slumped into a deep depression, brought on by the shock of my dad's sudden departure, and then compounded by the loneliness, worthlessness, and guilt she must have been feeling from neglecting me. Looking back now, that time of my life had really helped me become more independent. It made me stronger. I had to feed myself, bathe myself, and take myself off to school. Hell, no one else was going to do it for me.
I don't know if I like the story. It's really sad. I'm not gonna lie, it's really sad, you know? You're not wrong to see somebody like this.
It was horrible to see her this way. However, the 7-year-old me couldn't contain my excitement, and I badgered her relentlessly by asking, "Can I open them? Can I? Can I?" Until she was able to get the words out through the pain of her splitting headache. Yes, hurry up," she said. "Open them." "Great," I shouted, and began to tear into the wrapping paper like a rabid dog tearing into the flesh of its freshly caught prey. A Nintendo 64,
Nice.
Game Boy Pocket, Goosebumps books, Lego. I had really hit the jackpot. I was so happy. I looked up at my mum and said, "Thanks, Mum. I love you." "Don't thank me," she said. "Thanks, Santa." I smiled. "Thanks, Santa." She smiled back. Then, without thinking, I said, "I wish Dad could be here." I shouldn't have said it, but I was old.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I'm scared for the kid because he's an alcoholic. Oh no.
Too caught up in the moment. My mother's face turned, her icy stare filling me with regret for having ruined the good mood. Damn. Why did I have to say that? The awful and awkward silence was broken when she said in a cold, crackled whisper, "There's one more there. Aren't you going to open it?" I smiled.
No, thank you. I have enough. Nah, I will go start away.
Smiled an uncomfortable smile back at her. Yes, of course, I replied, trying so hard to get that warm, excited feeling back that had filled the room just minutes ago. I dragged over the last box. It was heavy. I didn't tear into it like the previous
Is it the hat of the dad?
few. I didn't have the same enthusiasm. Plus, I wanted to savor the moment. Who knows when I would be getting presents like this again? My mother stared intently at me as I peeled away the wrapping.
Oh
Opened the
no.
cardboard box
It's a dad's hat. Oh
and
no.
peered at the contents within. I froze. I can still see the image so clearly in my mind.
I don't even need to see it. I know what it is.
To this day, nothing has made me feel more sick to my stomach, more shattered, more incredibly disappointed and devastated. What is it, Ryan? She probed. What's wrong? Isn't it what you wanted? My father's head lifelessly stared at
I
me,
knew it.
and I stared back into his
I knew
eyes,
it.
his dead eyes. It's exactly what I wanted, I
What?
replied, sobbing as I did so. Good. Now dry your eyes, my mother croaked. I want you to meet someone. Out of the shadows,
Oh no. Jesus Christ.
a huge figure came into the room and put his hand
I have goosebumps. Santa, what the hell are you doing?
on her shoulder. This is Chris. He's going to be staying with us for a while. Now don't be rude. Say hello. I've never felt more alone and helpless than I did right at that moment. All I could do was say, hello.
Say it? Okay. That was actually kind of terrifying. I'm not even gonna lie. That was one of the most scary stuff I have heard so far. God damn. And the last animated horror story for today. These are sort of Christmas horror story animated. I kind of doubt if that is true. But yeah, I'm really excited for this one. So, I just am not going to talk any longer. Let's begin. Sorry, wrong.
This happened shortly before Christmas, on a Friday afternoon. Shopping in a small local Walmart with a male friend and my kids. I absolutely loathe holiday crowds and wouldn't even have bothered to get out if I weren't at the ketchup sandwich state of needing groceries.
Don't know if I like this animated style.
I'm in the pharmacy section, attempting to pick a hair dye, while both kids are in my push basket. My friend was in a different section, answering a work call on his cell phone. My son, kindergarten age, is smiling over my shoulder, and my daughter, a toddler who speaks mostly in fragments, suddenly says, "Creepy." I turn around, and there's a middle-aged man behind me, maybe about 20 feet back, just staring at my daughter. She's fairly beautiful, so people are always commenting.
That's weird to say. Yeah, okay. I can't understand. This guy obviously has a little child. But it's kind of weird to start a kid like that.
Commenting on her cute looks and talking to her.
I don't know, that's kind of weird.
I was instantly uneasy.
Please, dude, get the shot away from me. Don't even look at me. Turn around and shut off.
Left the pharmacy department and headed toward grocery because I needed things there. This friend and I have those bond bracelets that let you buzz to the other person when you're thinking about them. So I gave him 3 rapid buzzes, our code for call me.
Okay.
My friend materialized
Snarf.
on my side, which somewhat calmed me down. I casually mentioned the man that had appeared behind me, but because I was off my guard, I hadn't really got a good look at him. Just enough to notice that
A fat guy, blonde hair. Yeah.
his looks were somewhat nondescript. He was chubby and short. My friend looked at me and said, "I noticed him walking behind you when you were headed to the pharmacy." This did nothing for the nervous feeling in my stomach. My friend then commented that if we saw the creepy guy again, he'd tell the guy what's for.
Hele kleine shit out of him.
A while later, we're walking through the refrigerator aisles, contemplating coffee creamer flavors and whatnot, when my toddler pipes up again, this time to say, "Santa." I turn around and, I shit you not, the creepy man has gotten one of those Santa heads and
Okay. Color please.
put it on, and is once more standing right behind me, waving at my children. On high alert now, I speed walk the best I can with a large basket full of groceries and children, and make my way to the front.
That's a friend. Right here, go.
Friend has missed his moment, and is too busy following me to say anything to the man. I was practically running to the front. I find an empty lane and start shoving all the crap I want to buy onto the conveyor. The cashier begins scanning my things and notices how shaken I look. She asks me about it. I proceed to tell her about the creepy man, and she asks me if I can see him from there. My male friend, who's relatively tall, begins to scan the store and
Yes.
sees he's standing by the grocery exit. The cashier alerts a manager. At this point, we just want to get out of there relatively unbothered and go home. The manager headed in the direction of the grocery exit. We headed to the other
Wait. It's got to start in.
exit, and the creepy man met us outside, once again
Wait,
attempting
what?
to make eye contact.
Okay. If I was this dude, going to suck a shit out of him. Okay. Now you have done enough.
Toddler. My male friend, who has now finally found his moment, puffs up his full 6'5"
Yes.
and 250-ish pounds
Yes.
and roars, "Back the fuck off!"
Yes.
which the creepy man does immediately. As we're noping out to the car, the manager and two other employees approach the creep, which is the last we saw of him. I throw all of my crap into the trunk, while my friend is buckling the kids into their seats, and we hightail it out of there.
Let's do it.
Finally stopped hyperventilating shortly after that, but it's now May and it's still on my mind. Honestly, he may have been mentally ill. In the area where we were shopping, there's an outpatient hospital that treats patients of the mentally ill, substance addicted, and potentially dangerous to themselves varieties.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I'm glad my friend reacted the way he did, and I'm somewhat embarrassed at myself for not reacting in a similar fashion. I bragged to others about being an aggressive mama bear, but the way that the man suddenly approached from behind left me unprepared and more than a little stunned.
Okay. Yeah, that is it's not really your fault. I don't know.
This happened on Christmas Eve just about a year ago.
Yeah, I
I was
like this
visiting
stuff.
my family
Hello,
on my
yeah,
stepdad's
yeah,
side
yeah.
with my biological mother, and after most of my relatives had left, I found myself with a photo book in my lap. My mother, myself, and my stepdad's father
I really don't like the style of
were sitting
animation.
around looking at photos. There was a picture of this one woman with dark brown hair that struck me as familiar. I remembered her as a child. I vividly remember her leaning down and speaking to me, asking me how I was, and etc. I also remember that she worked at a Gallahan's gas station, as I had seen her numerous times when my stepdads would go in and buy cigarettes. As I had recalled this to my stepdad's dad, he looked at me with an expression of complete confusion and maybe then fear. He told me that I was correct about where she had worked, but it had been nowhere near where we lived. He also told me there was no way I would ever have known her, considering the fact that she died of a brain aneurysm in his bathtub back in 1993. I'm 16 now, meaning
What?
I was born 8 years afterwards. There would have been no way of meeting her, but apart from the fact that this woman died in his bathtub in the same
I guess she died in his bathtub.
house we were sitting in, what still chills me to the bone and makes me wonder is how I had known exactly where she had worked, and why had I seen her as a small child.
Okay.
This story happened about 5 years ago. It was Christmas Day around 1:30 in the morning, and I heard my upstairs screen door open. I wasn't thinking much about it. Probably that Santa was dropping off gifts, or that my mom was grabbing a couple
That's not Santa.
things to put under the tree. My twin sister and I were the only ones awake at the time, so we heard everything that was going on. We heard the Christmas tree and the gifts being moved around, slow, quiet footsteps moving around the house, and a beam of light moving around the living room.
Yeah. That's not young either. When? Height. Height ang lagat.
The light was getting closer until it reached the top of my
Hi.
steps, and it just stopped for about 5
That's the one like this,
seconds and left. Since I was only 10 at the time, my first thought wouldn't be that some intruder came into my house looking around.
It's
But I
the
had an
Santa.
idea, and I wanted to see if there were any presents under the tree. My sister said I should wait until the morning,
Yeah.
and that it should be a
Yeah. Listen to your sister. She's smarter than you.
surprise. Thank God I listened to her. About 5 more minutes of hearing things moved around my house. I heard a loud, ear-piercing sound of my mom screaming.
Okay. They're not like that. No. They're not like that at all.
Bolted up. I ran up the stairs,
Oh.
and when I was halfway up, I can hear her saying, "There's a man in the house," over and over. Thank God the man got startled and ran out of the screen door. I saw my mom and my sisters getting hysterical over the situation. We called the cops. Within 3 minutes, the police showed up. Only my sister and I heard everything, from the moment the man broke in, to him moving stuff around, into the sounds of my mother screaming. We really couldn't give a good description of the guy, since we didn't actually see what he had on. All my mom saw was that he was wearing dark denim jeans and a black hoodie with the hood up. We later found out that the man also broke into my grandparents' house, who lived down the street. The scariest part of this is, when before all of this happened, my sister heard footsteps above her window and thought it was a raccoon and waved at it for some odd reason. But now we definitely know it wasn't a raccoon.
Is it strange that he has broken in by her parents and tangled down? That is really
And if my
strange.
sister didn't tell me to go upstairs,
Oh.
what would have happened? What would have happened if that guy saw me by myself?
The day of
My
so
grandfather
us
suffered
Christmas.
from Alzheimer's disease and passed away 2 days
Like that?
before. My grandfather suffered from Alzheimer's disease.
My grandfather had the same thing and he also died. Then I'm going to hear that on Christmas Day. I'm like, yeah.
And passed away 2
Fine.
days before Thanksgiving. My grandmother is now living alone, so my mom has spent a lot of time over there keeping her company and helping
Okay.
her out around the house. She went to her house on Christmas to go with my grandmother to church before the rest of the family got there, and while my grandmother was getting ready, my mom was in the kitchen on her phone checking Facebook. Out of nowhere, this old Christmas music box in one of the bedrooms started playing by itself. It
Okay.
was the very last part of the melody to Silent Night,
Oh,
Sleep in
no.
Heavenly Peace. It played that
Mm-hmm.
one line at normal speed and just stopped before it could loop. I'm a skeptic, and no music boxes can do this for various reasons, but hearing that it only played that one line makes me want to believe that it was my grandfather letting his family know that he was at peace and no longer suffering. Just wanted to share this story because even if it's just the mechanism becoming unjammed, it gave my mom a feeling of peace and relief when it happened. Either way, the story both touched and freaked me out at the same time. Hearing that,
I have goosebumps.
goosebumps.
Yeah. They're not like that. God damn it. Oh, I got goosebumps. I didn't like that one. But yeah, this was it again. I really hope you enjoyed this. True horror animation Christmas. That you yesterday don't forget to subscribe. That's the only thing I ask you to do on this Christmas day. I hope you all have a nice Christmas. And I'll see you in the next video. Later.